Okay.
I'm titling my talk this morning as Hunger for Holiness, Part 2. So, I am going to talk about broadening the definition of holy and really looking at it from this kind of religious reverence or awe to an experiential version of what's perceived as divine, sacred, awe filled, not awful, awe filled, mysterious. And as long as I've been alive, there has been a distinction of what is holy and sacred, cutting it off from daily life, cutting it off from daily life experience through the division, though the division is not always so clear cut. And in the past, it might have even been more blurry when there was no attempt to separate church and state. In 1912, Emile Durkheim, a French sociologist, coined the division in religious life as the sacred and profane dichotomy. And sacred refers to the representations that transcend the chores of daily life. Profane, on the contrary, includes everyday mundane and ordinary things such as jobs, professions, daily commutes, etc., relationships. So no wonder the sacred would appear rarefied or maybe only experienced by those who don't do chores. Um, in, in reflective meditation, we don't attempt to divide the profane and sacred so distinctly because we want to hear what develops for you in your practice. And we want to listen to that and have you tell us more about it so we can hear more of the subtleties and distinctions. But in Buddhism in general, we have a wide range of expressions. Like, for example, the Dalai Lama, the leader of the Tibetan Buddhism, he goes by the title of His Holiness. And Stephen Batchelor, who introduced a secular Buddhism more recently in more modern times, is often quoted as using the word sublime. And one of my dear friends and colleagues, Josh Summers, he took it one step further. In his podcast, he talks about the everyday sublime. So we picked up on that thread. We kind of land in that direction in our book. And this is where we talk about the Brahma Viharas, which has the literal meaning of the house of the gods. But we talk about them as referring to positive qualities and sublime emotions. This is a quote. Um, the Buddha aspired towards sublime qualities that feel so good they seem divine. There are four: compassion, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. If we look for them in full bloom, in fully sublime mode, we may overlook the seeds of each one in their more everyday form. So if we look for the holy or sublime in our everyday experience, will that change our definition of what is holy and sublime? I hope so. I really do. Because while we can find the sublime in meditation, like these states of connection and uniqueness that stand out, and we can see them in outside of meditation. When we connect with nature or with other beings, we remember these states. They stay with us. And if we forget them, it's good to remember them because they can be a kind of food for us when we encounter dukkha, or dukkha is not transformed so quickly, not as quickly as we hope, or when we see situations with underlying pain that's not going to resolve. And we have to really come to terms with it. So what has to change or become more sublime is our relationship to those situations. So the direction I wanted to bring in is, what about the states that don't catch our attention? These are more modest states in our meditation or in our everyday experience with only a hint or flavor of good feeling or some juice. They may develop into something more sublime, but they may not. And what about the experiences of relief? Many of my sublime experiences or holy experiences are around not feeling like my usual depressed or anxious self, or not being as angry as I typically am when something doesn't go my way, or I have a sense of freedom from not craving more pleasure, more higher excitement, or higher stimulation. So, in a mindful practice, we're really asking people to be mindful of many things, of so many things. We lean you towards an awareness and discernment practice within that mindfulness. And sometimes it can be overwhelming. I know at times I feel like I'm juggling a lot of balls, then a few of them explode, or some of them drop, or they, one does, and I feel a relative sense of calm for a while, but then the balls go back up in the air, defying gravity, and I'm still juggling again. Um, but the meditation practice is hopefully helping us sit with those everyday life balls that are juggling. And we do start to see something different develop within that. We hear each other talk about it every day online. So, also in the midst of being mindful, I'm considering looking towards more of the existential wonders. So the other day when I was having a altercation, I don't know if that's the right word, disagreement, um, misunderstanding with my father, um, this thought popped into my mind of, wow, every person that's born has a different face. You can't find anybody with the exact same face. And there's a billion people or so, I don't know the number, of on this planet. And that just felt really wow. And it changed the direction of my certainty in the dynamic with my father. There was just something that shifted just a little bit. I didn't actually try to think about all the people's faces. It was just something that kind of popped in. Um, but I think it's a kind of miracle that everybody has a unique face. Like I can't even fathom it. It's beyond my really understanding. And I so much want to understand. So even within the disagreement and the misunderstanding with my father, there was this desire to be curious, more curious about his experience, about what had transpired between us. And even within that, I couldn't understand the whole thing. There's only parts of it I could. And the parts of it that I could actually brought a healing for us. That's one of the things about moving your parents close to you at the end of their lives and towards the end of yours, is there is the chance for healing, something that I had never considered would happen with me and my dad is happening. And I'm really happy to be a part of it. It's very holy and sublime. So I'll end my Dharma talk here. We'll sit a little bit shorter today